Now then, some of you may already know what this is going to be. But I really couldn't be bothered to shield it because I'm a bit giddy about this. This is a very, very old friend who I have not been in possession of for a very, very long time. This is a G1 Jetfire. And I have not yet opened this. This is as it arrived. It was in a remarkably mundane looking cardboard box with relatively little packaging as against what I actually paid to get it. But what I'm hoping for is a very, very nice white G1 Jetfire. That's what I'm hoping for. So let's see if that's what I actually end up with. The reason this has particular emotional resonance for me is that when I first got a G1 Jetfire, it was from Hamleys in London. And I physically got it from Hamleys in London, having saved up for a very long time to get it. And I remember dumping this pile of change with the odd note onto the till, and the till cashier giving me this sort of look as if to say, how quaint, because I had literally saved my pennies for him. If you've ever seen the box for him, then you'll appreciate that at the time when he came out, he was an absolute beast size-wise, and I will show you in a moment just what sort of level of beast he was compared to a typical Transformer of that era. Now, of course, this is not it isn't a typical Transformer. He was, now that is white. Wow. These are known for yellowing. They yellow incredibly easily, as many white toys do from this sort of era. But that is nice and white. He's quite metal in places, so you'll see that his legs are distinctly different colours because one part is plastic, one part is metal. But this is absolutely bob on. It's like he just came out of a box. That is actually quite remarkable. The sticker wear is virtually non-existent. That's really nice. I mean, I couldn't swear to you that all the stickers are in all the right places, but it's slightly peeled back there, but that could be fixed. It's still there. So I mean, that is a really... that's gone slightly askew. But I wouldn't dare take it off. I mean, no way. I mean, you could probably get replacement stickers for it, I guess, if you wanted to. But there's definitely a little bit of randomness there in terms of how they've been placed. But it's not bad at all. It's not bad at all. Now, you may not be familiar with the background to this particular model, but this was, as were many of Hasbro's early G1 Transformers, it was a licensed version of another manufacturer's toy. So it was a Takatoku toy. Very famously, of course, the Macross VF1. I hope I've got that designation right. But actually, he's actually technically, I think he's a VF, or is it a VJ, or VF1S. So he's a sort of super Valkyrie because he has a lot of armour. Now, his actual full-on jet mode is like this, and there's a little bit of paint wear. His tail fins, though, they're always a little bit loose with age. They're actually not bad. So that is how he looks when he's in sort of full-on F-14 Tomcat mode. But of course he isn't an F-14 Tomcat, he's a Transformer. Now, I'm not a Transformer supreme aficionado. I know someone who does a lot better than me on that front. But he would tell you that although Jetfire is lifted from another company, he has his own backstory, but he also has multiple backstories. From my point of view, when I was reading the UK comics, Jetfire was created by Shockwave on Earth and imbued with life using the Autobot creation matrix that was normally residing in Optimus Prime's head, which happened to be in possession of Shockwave at the time. And that was how Jetfire came to be alive. In fact, thinking about it, it was probably Buster Witwicky that... Yes, I think it was Buster who actually gave him life. He was automated at first, then Buster brought him to life. And then he became an Autobot, having originally been designated as a Decepticon. Now, in the cartoon, things changed a lot. This does not appear in the Transformers cartoon, because having Macross origins, because the Takatoku model appeared in Macross and then Robotech, this design could not then be used in the animated version of Transformers. So as a result, not only did we get a different looking Jetfire, we also got a robot that was called Skyfire rather than Jetfire. And a lot of the later versions of Jetfire call themselves Skyfire and resemble the cartoon version rather than the Valkyrie version, which is the version that I bought from Hamleys all those years ago. Probably nearly 40 years ago now. Yes, that's terrifying. But I have always loved this design because it's such a great jet fighter and it's such a great robot. Now, I'm going to have to transform this now, with apologies to Mark. But before I do that, let me do something else, because I have a separate bag here. And this is why I really cross all my fingers and toes, because in this bag, I hope, are all of his armour pieces. Now, if you're wondering what happened to my original Jetfire, I did something that I thought was quite smart at that point in time, and I sold his armour pieces separately to him. And so I don't have any of my original Jetfire left, but I did make quite a lot of money from selling him years back now. I mean, we're talking, I don't know, early 2000s probably. I finally got rid of my first one. But what I'm hoping to find in here is a backpack which fits onto this piece when it folds upward like that, which is it was in its as it was in its original sort of travelling configuration. Now here you see, so this is his gun. But this is his gun stand, his sort of gun holder. And he can use that when he's in jet mode to attach his gun, because his fists aren't available in jet mode. And this is quite sought after, I believe, because this is often missing. So when I saw this was available in the auction, I thought, yep, that's nice. That's a good thing to have, because I know that's often missing. This scope is often missing as well. There's a little scope on the top of his gun there as well, which is often missing, but that's also present, which is, again, is good. Now we get into the fun parts. I love these. So he's got boosters. The stickers are slightly interestingly positioned there, but these are his classic Super Valkyrie boosters, which will basically let them get into space effectively from ground level. But you can see he's got nice Autobot insignia on the side of those there. I mean, the sticker sheet for this must have been a bit of a beast. You do still see them in boxes on eBay on occasion, but you're talking several £100 to get hold of them. And these are his, what would you call them? Well, I think they're particle beams, but his sort of forearm gauntlets, I suppose, his forearm armour. Now you can see there that looks like it's been stressed quite a lot over time. So I'm kind of terrified of attaching those. So I may well not do. But again, I believe it's quite unusual to find a full set of armour for a loose version of him. So I'm very happy to have all these pieces. And again, these are the... Ooh, hello. Are they supposed to be? I know, that's okay. Actually, no, they slide in there. I was panicking for a moment, but these side pieces do actually strap into these pieces. So that's not broken as such. And these are his sort of side leg armour pieces. So that is a full set, and all the attachments points look as if they're intact. So fair dues to the seller, it's exactly as described. It's exactly as described. Which now makes me want to get something else from him, which I really can't afford. But so if you can imagine, basically these strap onto the side there. I mean, you'll find pictures of this everywhere. You know, this is a very, very common thing to see them. But these lock onto the side of this backpack, and so you end up with a backpack that looks like that. So you get sort of twin boosters either side of his back. And he can wear them in robot mode, but he can also wear them in what's called Batroid mode. I'll come to that in a moment. But that is really, really nice. And if I'm brave on another night, I'll put his armor on him. But I'm not going to do that right now. But what I do want to do is I want to transform him, so you can have a look at the transformation, because that's a pretty sort of impressive sort of piece of engineering. But of course it does come from something else, and you may have seen on the channel this chap already, and I'm going to come back to him in a little while. But this is what inspires this. Basically, this is that. But this is the Macross Valkyrie, which could be a Super Valkyrie if it had armor on, but this is the one which is led by, now in Robotech terms he's Rick Hunter. I think he's got a slightly different name. I think he's sort of Roy Fokker or something like that in the Macross, but his Veritech fighter, this Valkyrie, is always distinguished by the fact he's got twin laser cannons there. And you'll see in a moment that Jetfire also has those, because they are nearly the same mould, but not quite. And I can demonstrate that in a few moments. So let me show you how you get from this to this, he says. Now then, and I could probably, once upon a time, I could do this in my sleep. I'm just going to move the camera back a little bit so you can get a little bit more of a view of what I'm actually doing with it. So, I'm trying to think of the best way to start it. I think you bring that down first. You pop that up. Let's fold his tails down. Bring that up a little bit so then you can put the wings back. Now, one of the scariest things is moving his legs past his head, because you don't want to be knocking his head spikes as you go past them. So you do that, and all of a sudden he is incredibly tall. So as you can see, he's virtually the length of my field of camera now. So having done that, what I'm now going to do is pop out his arms from underneath here. This is really, I can feel the joints are really firm. It's really clever. Why have they put stickers on his face? Is that a thing? I don't think that's a thing. Oh well. Then you just pop his head up through there like that. Head comes up to the top. Push his arms as far away from his body, torso as you can do. And then the really scary bit is the bit where you have to kind of press his wings down at the back to lock his body into the right sort of position. I don't want to do it. I actually don't want to do it. I seriously don't want to do it because it feels like it's fighting me a little bit. But basically, and he's also got pop-up landing gear in his legs there, so they should just fold down. So make sure you get the white flaps out of the way first, because the metal needs to go in first like that. I mean, regardless of whether or not the stickers are in quite the right place, it's an incredibly minty condition, I think personally. The ratchet mechanisms are still really tight. I mean, I can't believe this was heavily played with. I mean, perhaps someone just sort of transformed him and then just flew him around a lot. I really don't know, but he is in remarkably good shape. So you spread his feet out like that, and then he will. I'm still not happy with the way his back's shaping up. I think it's maybe I need to do it more from the shoulder. That's it. That's got it clicked in now. Yeah, it was just just needed a bit of shoulder manipulation. Then his fists pop out like that. He can only wield his gun in one hand, but that's a minor detail. And as you can see, there's a nice sort of space there. You just push that back up, and there you have Jetfire in his robot form. And as you can see, he's got his rub symbol is on the top of his head there for his Autobot symbol. If I just grab his gun out, bear with me. And there you have one very, very, barring the odd little sort of paint glitch, a very, very minty Jetfire. So really, I'm absolutely amazed that I'm holding this 40 years on. Again, well, maybe 20 years on, I suppose, since I got rid of my first one, but he's in such good condition. I know some people, aren't fans of eBay, and obviously, it comes with a certain degree of risk, and yes, his stickers aren't absolutely bob-on applied, they've got a little tiny bit of wear, but that is an incredibly nice display model of a Jetfire. It really is, because it's not yellowed at all. You just don't get them this white very often at all. That really is, a pretty impressive condition to get a Jetfire in loose from eBay. So if I just line him up now, you'll see that they are essentially exactly the same. There is absolutely no splitting those two apart at all. But interestingly, I think that the grey coloration on the Macross version actually protects it a little bit from the sort of yellowing that the Jetfires normally get. I imagine that probably helped them. But I've got two really nice examples of Valkyries here. It's just crazy. And as you can see, the differences are pretty minor, apart from that overall colouring and the decals, obviously. The sort of the visor is different, but the head sculpt's the same. There's a little sort of sensor circle on the top there. So you might be wondering, what are the differences? Now, I haven't actually researched this, which was a bit silly of me. But I know that there are differences, and I believe that the first difference, and maybe the only one I can actually remember, is that the wings have been done differently. I don't know quite why this was. It might have been a safety thing, or it's just a design choice by somebody somewhere. But if I bring his wings up at the back, you'll see that they go very nearly horizontal. Now, if I'm right, Jetfires don't do this. Yeah, so that is the extent of Jetfire's wing angle. So you can see they're very different. They're very, very different. And I'm not quite sure why that choice was made, unless it was to distinguish it from the Valkyrie in some way. But, otherwise, it is essentially the same thing. Now, apparently some Jetfires were produced by a company that took over from Takatoku briefly, that actually made Takatoku's products. And sometimes you get Jetfires that actually have a Macross symbol on them. And I don't think mine does. I certainly haven't spotted it if it does. But if you see this symbol on the wing, that is unusual in the Transformers version. So that's one you're looking out for, because it implies that it comes from this lineage, but it comes from a time when that company was, the original Takatoku company had gone under, but the molds were still being used by a different company, and they kind of forgot to take that off the Jetfires that they did. So yeah, it's just so lovely to have him back, really. You can see the guns are very, very similar. I'm not sure, this was very much a sort of a throwaway gun that was thrown in because he didn't have the original gun. So I don't know if this is actually a repainted Jetfire gun. You can see it's missing a scope there on the top. Or if it actually came with a slightly different gun, and it's a very funny fit. So I'm not at all sure that this is the right fit for this particular one. Now, I'm struggling to think what the other difference might have been between this and... is it the nose? Yeah, I think it's the nose. Yeah, there's something about the nose sculpt is different, I think, which unfortunately is going to be very, very difficult to show you rather with them in this mode. But I think that the sculpt at the bottom of the nose there is pointier on the Macross Valkyrie. Yeah, it's maybe just a little bit different. I mean, I honestly could be making that up. I'm not entirely sure, but something is whispering to me in the back of my mind that's one of the differences. But yeah, I mean, they are pretty awesome. They are pretty awesome, it has to be said. Now, one thing I haven't done yet is shown you the halfway house mode. If you're at all familiar with Macross / Robotech, you'll know that they have what's called a Batroid form. And I think that in Transformer terms, it's more referred to, well, in fact in Robotech terms, it's referred to as a Gerwalk mode as well. And that's where they form an alternate mode that's kind of halfway between robot and jet. So I'm going to try it with Jetfire, I think. I'll move my Macross out of the way. You'll notice that I call that Valkyrie a Macross Valkyrie, not a Robotech Valkyrie, because Robotech never released a toy that was transformable for that jet. They released a jet, but it couldn't transform. And I'm going to have a little bit of a chat about that in another video, but not this one. So let me just try and think about the best way to do this again now. Let me move this in a little bit, so you can have a look at this in a bit more detail. Okay. So let's lose the gun. Okay, let's just do this gently so I don't do something massively stupid with it. Okay. So we'll pop his fists, and this is the sort of thing that always terrified me a bit when I had him the first time around, because once his fists are locked in place, they're generally really locked in place. So you want to be a little bit careful with them, just to get them going back in again. There we go. Actually, no. What am I doing? I don't need to do that at all. That was stupid of me. Okay, let's try this again. I'm a little bit rusty. I mean, it has been a few years since I've done this particular transformation, but let's just try and try not to break him, Andrew. Okay. So what we're going to do is get his head out of the way again, and we're going to slide his chest plate back up. I'm going to slide this down. We're going to slide that down, but we are going to leave his arms out here. Let's just make sure that's gone back in properly. Okay. Now then, let's think about this. So I need to leave his arms out. I'm actually going to turn him upside down to do this. I think that's probably safest. His tail's tucked in. Yep. So what we're going to do is bring his legs back up, but we're not going to put his legs all the way flat back. So what you do is you bring his legs into this position. Now then, where do his arms go in this context? I think they stay there, actually. I think they stay a little bit out. Trying to demonstrate this on camera is probably not the best idea as a first attempt. I'm not at all sure that that's a good idea. Simply because I can't seem to get that one to splay out in the same way. But what I should be able to do is bring those down. What am I missing? Do I need to have his wings away? I should have blue painted this, I feel. not right, because that's definitely not... Oh, no, that might be right, actually. Okay. No, that is right. So maybe I don't need to push those all... I think these should go all a bit further up. But I don't want to force it for obvious reasons. So I may not have this quite right. It definitely shouldn't split out. See, that one did that quite happily. Ah, now that one has as well. Okay, that's all right. That's all right. I've got it. Okay. So what we then have is this sort of halfway house mode where his head is still visible down there, but he can basically use this as a thruster zone and blast himself forwards that way, and then he can go like this across the ground using his jets, his feet, as sort of vertical thrusters. So that is G1 mode. That's how I know it. And it starts putting out his Batroid form in Macross would have been his robot form. I think that's the right terminology. So the cool thing about this is he can now still use his gun in this mode, but now he's a cross between a robot and a jet. So it was such a lot of play value, and he was so much more articulated than the smaller robots, the smaller Transformers of the day, who would come from different manufacturers, of course, rather than Takatoku. Because many of them were sort of Takara, and there were Diaclones and so on. And by way of example, this is Sideswipe. And just look how small Sideswipe is compared to Jetfire. I mean, literally tiny. Jetfire was intended to be larger than the other Decepticon Seekers jets. But, he was huge compared to, one of the sort of smaller Autobot toys at the time. So you can see, there's just no comparison size-wise whatsoever. And that's why I was so keen to get him, because whilst I didn't mind Optimus Prime, he wasn't actually as big as Jetfire. Jetfire was the only good guy jet that actually existed at that point in time, I think it's fair to say. So really, if you wanted to fight the Decepticons in the sky, you had to have Jetfire. I mean, yes, there was Powerglide, I suppose, but I mean, Powerglide's tiny. This was a thing of beauty. And the weird thing is, I'd run across him before. And I spent quite a while last night hunting this down. And it was a classic example of, it was of course in the last place I looked, but it really was in the last place I looked, or very, very nearly. So I used to get the All American comic when I was little, and this particular one is obviously the Mighty Thor, wearing stuff that wouldn't look out of place in the modern films. And in amongst these pages was this. And although this isn't actually the advert that I remember, it has stuck with me, because I remember thinking that is an incredibly cool looking robot. And of course these are Robotech Valkyries, which are basically Macross Valkyries. But this is actually advertising a role-playing game. And it was these adverts that I remember seeing in these comics at this time, but it wasn't actually this one. And interestingly, you can see there that it's copyright 85 Harmony Gold. But, that's who actually owns Robotech is a whole different ball game, which I'm not going to cover in this video. But there he is. Wasn't quite the video I was planning to do tonight. I've got another one to do after this, but I couldn't resist not showing you this, if that isn't a double negative. As in, I felt I needed to show you me unpacking this, because I do really love him so much. He was a major childhood goal, was saving up enough to get him. I got it from Hamleys, so that is a very, very fond childhood memory for me, which I have now shared. So yeah, that's Jetfire, who would then become known as Skyfire, and he has reappeared in this form in the comics in very, very sort of clever fashions, whereby he actually wears armour that makes him look like a Valkyrie, even though it's not his actual form as such. And on that note, I think I will leave it there. So do like and subscribe, and he's going to be part of another video very shortly, which other people have covered in the past, but there is this like nuance to the story that I'm going to tell about it, which again has a lot of resonance for me personally. So as I say, do subscribe to the channel to get updates on new videos, and then you can catch that video when it comes out. Cheers for now.